Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer. We have a phenomenal true heavyweight comparison lined up for you today. We're looking at the ultimate no-holds-barred showdown between the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra. If you've been wondering exactly what the absolute bleeding edge of mobile tech looks like right now, well, you are in the exact right place. Here is our fight card for today. First, we'll meet the flagship heavyweights. Then we'll look at the great silicone race, followed by the design and display showdown. From there, we'll cover cameras, video, and content before tackling AI software and battery life. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the final verdict. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Meet the Flagship Heavyweights, the introduction and the stakes. Right out of the gate, we're seeing some pretty fascinating contrasts in how these companies build a phone. Samsung has managed to give the S26 Ultra a noticeably lighter aluminum body. It weighs in at just 214 grams compared to Apple's 233 grams. And honestly, when you're holding a device for hours a day, that almost 20-gram difference is something you will absolutely feel in your wrist. But get this, Apple actually takes a surprisingly early win on the wallet. The iPhone 17 Pro Max starts at $1,199, which is a full $100 less than the S26 Ultra's starting price. It is such a fascinating role reversal to see Apple stepping in as the slightly more budget-friendly option at the high end. Moving right along to Section 2, the great silicon race. It's the A19 Pro going head-to-head with the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. Now, what's really interesting here, looking at the Geekbench 6 data sourced directly from BBOM, is that a massive shift is happening in the processor world. For years, Apple has been the undisputed king of single-core speed, right? Well, Qualcomm has finally closed the gap. The Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 hits a single-core score of 3,831, practically matching Apple's 3,895. But look at that multi-core column. Qualcomm utterly crushes it with a score of 11,525. That gives them a massive 18% lead over the A19 Pro. So you might be wondering, how are they achieving these numbers? Especially considering both of these chips are built on the exact same ultra-efficient 3-nanometer TSMC process. Well, it comes down to architecture. Apple sticks to a 6-core setup, which really helps them maintain a very slight edge in performance per watt and overall efficiency for single tasks. Qualcomm, on the other hand, packs in 8 cores and pushes the frequency much higher, all the way up to 4.61 gigahertz to power that multi-core dominance. It's basically sheer frequency versus calculated efficiency, two totally different engineering philosophies pushing the exact same silicon tech to its absolute limit. Those processing numbers are incredible, no doubt about it, but they really only tell the internal story. The real question is, how do these two powerhouses actually capture and display the world around you? That brings us perfectly to Section 3, Design and Display Showdown, Senses and Sights. Okay, you have to hear about this game-changing tech from Samsung. They've introduced a world-first privacy display. It literally obscures your screen from anyone trying to peek over your shoulder, and it does it all at the pixel level. No more need for those clunky plastic stick-on protectors. Combine this brilliant anti-shoulder surfing tech with the S26 Ultra's superior outdoor brightness, we're talking over 1,800 nits in vivid mode, and Samsung takes a very decisive win in the display category. It is a massive leap forward for anyone who commutes or works in public spaces. Now, let's pivot to Section 4, Cameras, Video, and Content, the Sights Showdown. Let's talk raw hardware, because the numbers here are massive. Samsung is just throwing huge megapixel counts at the problem. They feature a 200-megapixel main sensor with a wider aperture designed specifically to pull in way more low light, paired with a 50-megapixel telephoto. Apple takes a much more unified approach with a triple 48-megapixel setup on the rear, but they bring a massive 56% bigger telephoto zoom sensor this year. Plus, they added an 18-megapixel center stage front camera that lets you take these great wide landscape selfies without even having to flip the phone around. Both setups are incredibly powerful, but again, their strategies just couldn't be more different. So how does all that fancy hardware actually translate to the real world? Well, according to the extensive side-by-side testing, the iPhone 17 Pro Max actually takes the overall photography crown. It just consistently produces brighter and more natural-looking shots in most of your daily scenarios. It wins in everyday photos, macro close-ups, low-light environments, and it delivers sharper, way more natural skin tones in portraits, effectively avoiding some of those oversaturation issues we sometimes see on the Galaxy. Basically, if you just want to point and shoot, the iPhone is incredibly reliable. But hey,
Let's balance the scales here, because the S26 Ultra is far from defeated. Samsung remains the absolute, undisputed king of extreme zoom, easily dominating anything from 10x all the way up to 100x magnification. Furthermore, Samsung takes a massive win in motion video thanks to a wild new feature called horizontal lock. This thing keeps your footage incredibly steady even if you physically twist the phone. The iPhone, meanwhile, still retains a slight edge for your standard, crisp 4K daylight video. With the hardware and cameras pushing literally every physical limit, it begs a very 21st century question. Which of these devices is actually smarter? Let's find out in Section 5, AI software and battery life, brains and brawn.
Samsung has pushed the envelope incredibly far here. Look at this workflow for their automated app actions. You just speak a command out loud, Google's Gemini builds the complex order in the background, and then you just confirm your Uber or DoorDash, all without ever manually opening the app itself. It's wild. Features like this, alongside their contextual now nudge, give the S26 Ultra a massive, undeniable win in the AI software department. It truly feels like a glimpse into the future of how we're going to interact with our devices.
Now, Apple, on the other hand, is admittedly playing a bit of catch-up in generative AI, but their focus is laser-targeted on everyday utility. iOS 26 brings some highly practical quality-of-life updates. For instance, call screening to weed out spam on your behalf, and Hold Assist, where the phone literally waits on hold for you so you don't have to listen to elevator music for 20 minutes. It's definitely less flashy than Samsung's AI, but it's arguably just as useful for keeping your daily sanity and saving you precious time. Okay, I just want to let this next massive number sink in for a second. 17 hours and 54 minutes. That is the jaw-dropping continuous web surfing battery life achieved by the iPhone 17 Pro Max in rigorous lab testing. Yep, the iPhone reclaims the ultimate lead in endurance, pushing nearly 18 hours. The Galaxy S26 Ultra puts up a highly respectable fight at 16 hours and 10 minutes, but it just can't catch the iPhone's brawn. It is worth noting, however, that Samsung does offer much faster 60-watt wired charging to get you back on your feet quicker, compared to Apple's 40-watt limit. So you have a classic trade-off here between total endurance and charging speed. All right, we made it to Section 6. The final verdict. Let's tally up the score. Let's summarize the victories for the Galaxy S26 Ultra first. Samsung takes home the trophy for its brilliant privacy display, that incredibly stable horizontal lock for video, a massive lead in cutting-edge AI software with automated actions, and superior fast charging. Honestly, this makes the S26 Ultra the absolute perfect choice for power users who want to live right on the bleeding edge of software and display innovation. But looking at the iPhone 17 Pro Max, we see a totally different kind of victory. Apple surprisingly wins on initial starting price, dominates everyday photography and natural portraits, offers superior peak performance stability under load, and takes the crown for overall marathon battery life. It remains the top choice for users who value unshakable core reliability and a camera that just works perfectly in almost any daily scenario. So what does this all mean? The crucial point here is that neither phone is objectively better at everything. They just excel at completely different philosophies, which leaves us with one final thought. When you go to make that high-end investment, are you choosing the raw futuristic AI power of the Galaxy or the ultimate reliable endurance of the iPhone for your next upgrade? Let that marinate as you consider your next flagship. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.